Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for a-tutspost.com, and here is what we are going to create today. As you can see, this is a broadcast over third animation. So let's get started. Let's delete that and let's create a new composition. And let's call it over third base big, and let's make it 30 seconds long and hit OK. First, create a new solid, doesn't matter what color, and call it lower third base. Then turn on the title action save and select the mask tool, rectangle mask tool, and let's create a shape somewhere around here, maybe something like that. This size I think is okay, for example. And next, let's apply a ramp effect. Come to generate ramp and let's set the start of the ramp to around here or maybe here, and I've picked the color I used in the original example. And for the bottom, probably use a pretty dark color and set the ramp type to radial ramp, and maybe set this to like so, and our result should look something like that. After that, come to Effect, Perspective and choose Bevel Alpha, and let's see, let's turn off that and set the white intensity to 0.5, set the white angle to 180 degrees because we want this white line here at the bottom. Set the edge thickness to 3 so it's thicker, and we want basically to have the same result on the top side of our base. So let's select the layer, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it and hit W to rotate it. So let's rotate it and move it down. But as you can see, we have a problem, because if we select and mask our top part, we get this kind of a line which we don't want. So select the top one, Ctrl D to duplicate it, remove the bevel alpha, and let's delete all the masks and draw a shape like so. And the final result, as you can see, we have our lower third base, and as you can see, I'm not sure if you can see it, but we get bending right here. So we can set the ramp scatter to 50. This will help us to avoid the bending. And actually I see something like a line here, which I'm pretty sure I know why is that, and this is probably because of our mask, and because we flipped our layer, so I'm going just to make my top layer bigger and hide all unwanted defects. So we are finished with the base, and let's first of all save our project, and let's call this watered tutorial and save. And now let's move on to the next part. Let's create a new composition and let's call it watered base small and hit OK. And let's create a new layer, watered base, and let's take the rectangle mask tool again, turn on the action safe area and draw a shape, and probably something like that I think is okay. And let's apply a ramp effect on top of this layer, so generate ramp, and let's see, let's select a orange color for the bottom, and I think something like that will be okay, or I just can copy and paste the original color like so. So we have this kind of orange for the end of the ramp and this color for the start of the ramp. And let's move the start point somewhere around here maybe, and let's move the bottom somewhere around here. And let's create another layer, just Ctrl D to duplicate this one and delete the ramp, and let's make it white, and hit T to review the opacity, set the opacity to 25%, and let's see, we're going to make it smaller and set the blending mode to add, and this looks pretty dark I think, so probably move it like so. I think is fine for this example. And finally let's create a adjustment layer, and let's make another mask right here like so, and let's come to effect, color correction, hue and saturation, and set the master saturation to 50%, and let's feather the mask 200 pixels, so we have, or even 400, so we have a nice rich full of color middle part of our base. Now let's take this composition and let's first of all rename it and call it main, and let's put this one into another composition, and let's select our mask tool and let's draw a shape right here, set a point, something like that, and draw the shape. As you can see, that's the result we are going for. So let's come to effect perspective and let's drop a bevel alpha and set the white intensity to 1, and that's pretty much everything that we're going to do on this one. So let's add a drop shadow and basically set the distance to 4 and the softness to 12, so we have a nice shadow below. And just duplicate our layer, hit M and set the mask to subtract, and let's see, probably change the shadow direction and probably move the mask a couple of pixels, or maybe not. So let's leave it like so for now, and let's create our moving lines right here. Let's take the pen tool and create another shape layer. We'll draw our shape like so. We want a precise shape, so I think something like that is okay. And come to the modifiers for the shape layer and choose repeater, and set the repeater copies to 100, and come to transform repeater and set the position to something like 12, for example. And let's set this to overlay and set the opacity to 70% maybe, or 50, 70. And let's duplicate our left side and let's use this as a alpha matte, hit P, and let's animate our lines, for example from here to here, and probably modify the distance between the copies, for example 14, or just if we set this to 14, we can slide this over like so, and let's see, just reverse the keyframes, time reverse keyframes. So I want our lines to move from left to right, so let's animate this type of movement. Let's make a quick run preview to see how that looks, and I think it's pretty cool. So we are done with that, and let's move on. It's time to create our logo holder. So let's create a new composition and let's call this logo holder, and let's make the size of our composition 300 by 300 pixels and hit OK. So let's create another solid and let's call it logo holder base, and double click on the circular mask to add a mask, hit MM to review the mask properties and set the mask expansion to -2, so we have a bit of a gap between the edge of the composition and our shape. And now let's come to effect generate ramp, or actually come to the our watered base and copy the ramp because we are going to use the same cores, and set the start point around here and the end point to around here, and let's just reverse the course. So let's reverse the course. So I'm going to use this core here and this core here. I wish ramp had a reverse course switch checkbox. This will make our life easier. So after that, let's create a duplicate of our wall base, and let's change the ramp course to something like that, and white, and set the start and the end of the ramp like so. And now let's come to our mask, Ctrl D to duplicate the first mask, MM to review the mask properties, and set the expansion of the second mask to -20%, and set the mask to subtract. And after that, let's duplicate our second mask, set the mode to add, and set the mask expansion to 0, and just move the mask like so, and probably increase the size of the mask and move it like so, something like that. And let's change the blending mode to add, and hit the transparency switch, so this will make our solid to disappear and appear only where is the base below, and set the opacity to 25%. And let's move on. Just duplicate this layer, set the blending mode to normal, set the opacity to 100, and turn off this one, and hit M to review the masks and delete the third mask. Let's see, we need to apply a perspective bevel alpha and set the white intensity to 0.8. And now let's come to perspective again, and let's add a drop shadow, set the opacity to 100%, and set the softness to 80 and the distance to 0. And let's duplicate this shadow and increase the softness to 160, and leave the rest like that. And let's duplicate this layer, delete all the effects, and delete the second mask. And we are going to use this layer as a alpha matte in order to cut the shadows that bleed outside of our shape and keep them only in the inner part of our circle. So this is a smart way to do that. And now let's type our text. Select the type tool and let's type for example 2, and let's see, I used Futura, yep, this font, which is bold, and the size maybe something big like that. And let's position this, so this looks great. Let's move it a bit, and let's copy the ramp and paste it, and let's copy the bevel alpha and the drop shadow and paste them, and let's modify the settings a bit. For the shadow, let's make it at 3 distance and 6 for softness and 50% opacity. And this looks great already. And let's Control T and let's type news on a new layer, and let's reduce the size and let's make it with capital letters. So let's keep the size at 70% and increase the spacing by 10 or 25, which is fine, maybe 40 or even 60, which will be fine, and decrease the size to 68, something like that. And let's use this layer as a alpha inverted matte, and let's duplicate it and mask everything except the S letter, like so, and just copy and paste the effects. Maybe set the bevel to 1 and the rest should look fine. So something like that is okay for me. Ctrl S to save our project. And now it's time to put together our lower third. Create a new composition and let's call it main comp and make it HD and hit OK. And come and take our base big and drop it in our main comp. And drop the base small in the main comp. And actually this is a pretty big base. Let's increase it in scale a bit to hide the edges of the bevel, and probably come to the base big and let's increase its size just a bit, like so. And that's up to you. I mean, I can't recreate my design 100%, but I guess probably I can scale down this just a bit and copy the mask and paste it. Let's paste the mask and let's move this here, like so, and that starts to look cool. Probably we can increase the size of our big composition just a bit, and let's see, something like that looks pretty cool, I think. And let's start to review our parts of the lower third. So let's hide the small one, select the rectangle mask tool and let's draw a mask. Select the layer and draw a mask right here. Set the mask feather to 200, set a keyframe keyframe for the mask and move 20 frames forward. And let's review our first part of the lower third, and let's do the same, but from the other side for our small part of the overthird. So let's review it like so, and let's take the logo holder composition, and obviously it's pretty big, so I'm going to scale this down to 70% or maybe 60, and basically it's up to you. So let's leave it like that and come to effect, perspective, and add a bit of a bevel alpha to this one, something like that, and add a bit of a drop shadow again, maybe 3 and 6, and set the opacity to 65%, and maybe set this to 10 and this to 0.8, something like that. And let's come to frame 15. Let's animate the scale, set this to 0, and hit R for rotation and set this to -1 and 108 actually, like so, and set a keyframe, move 10 frames forward, set this to 60 and set this to 0, and hold down Alt and click on the scale property, and I'm going just to paste a expression which will be included in a text file with the project, and it's pretty long and hard to explain expression, and I guess that's because I'm not that good in expressions, but basically this gives a little movement after our main animation. It adds something like a bouncy type of animation, as you can see, something like that, which I think looks cool. And let's turn on the motion blur, and let's set the rotation to easy ease keyframe, so it slowly stops like so. And now it's time to add a bit of optical flares to this design to make it even cooler. So let's create a new solid, and let's call it bottom flare, and let's come and apply optical flares. The first thing that we're going to do is to open the options of the plugin, and I'm going to clear all and hit yes, and I'm going to add a simple streak, and this will be our streak long. And let's come to the streak settings and let's stretch it a bit like so and make it thinner, and basically that's it for the long streak. And let's add another one, and let's call it streak short, and let's put it on top, and let's decrease the length of this one and make it like so. And let's come to the global parameters and see if we set this to 0.3 or something like that. And let's change the core to maybe 250, 120 and 40. I guess that was the core I used. And I think we are ready to go, and let's hit OK. Set the blending mode to screen, and let's move, or maybe set this to add. It will look even better. And let's position it like so. Okay, put this right here, and let's duplicate this, and let's call it top flare, and basically move it on top right here. And let's animate it. So let's start from frame 10 and come to the bottom flare, and let's move it like so out of the frame. Or actually, let's put it right here. Set a keyframe, and set a keyframe for brightness. Set the brightness to 0, and move 5 frames forward and set the brightness to 100%. And let's move 20 frames forward from our first keyframe to frame 30, and let's set the brightness to 150 and move 20 frames forward and animate the position of our lens flare like so, and set the brightness to 0 and move 5 frames before the end of our animations and set the brightness to 100%, and make the middle keyframe to easy ease. So we have this type of animation, and basically we are going to copy all the keyframes and paste them to the top layer, and just reverse the animation so they come from a different position, and just move the flare to the top, and let's take this position, delete the keyframe, click on the position and just paste it. And we haven't our animation because we need to set this manually, I guess, like so. And we need to animate our flare for the wow holder, so let's create another layer and call it wow holder flare, and let's click OK and come to optical flares, open the options, clear row, and just add a simple glow. And I'm going to change the global core to something like that. Hit OK, and let's see. I'm going to leave the settings here like so, and just decrease the scale and set this to 50% and hit OK, and actually decrease the scale here again and set this to 80. Set the transfer mode to add, and let's put this thing right here, and let's come to frame 23, I guess. Set a keyframe for brightness, set this to 0, move 2 frames forward, set this to 100, and come to frame 40 and set this to 0, and make the last keyframe easy ease. So we have a nice smooth animation like so, and just put the wall holder on top of the flares so they move behind it. And let's type something. For example, let's type, and I guess I need to increase the base big just a bit more because I feel it's not big enough to put a nice title there. Something like that is fine. So let's type, for example, breaking news, and let's see if we make this italic and set this here and choose an animation preset. For example, come to text and open blurs, and this is one of my favorite, so let's choose this one. And let's see if we start to review this from frame 20. This is our first title which comes in, and let's duplicate this and move the animation to start 5 frames after the first title. And let's move this one here, probably decrease the size to 65 and maybe 55, and let's type new tutorial at 8 plus, and I guess we can duplicate this one and move it here. Type something else, and we can duplicate this one again. Hit U to review the keyframes and move 5 frames forward. Offset the animation, and let's move this layer here, decrease the size to 40% and set this to medium, and let's type something like which we can duplicate again and move this. And the titles, you can put them in a editing software, and this is our basic animation. So let's Ctrl A to select everything, and let's make a short RAM preview so we can see how our animation looks. and I think it's pretty cool for a tutorial. And basically for the top part you just duplicate the base big, put it on top, move it like so, and maybe like so, and just duplicate the base small main and put it on top again right here. And I guess this composition, both of the compositions should be with a smaller size, but it's up to you. And for this you can get rid of this part, so let's come to our composition and let's duplicate this one, double click, and let's turn off these layers and turn off the mask. Come to the main comp and just hold down Alt and replace our composition, and you're ready to go. And basically you can animate your text and everything, and basically that's it for this type of a lower third design. And another thing you can do is to put the logo holder in the middle and animate the small and the big base from the middle to the left and to the right to create a lower third for two persons, for example for the person on the left side and the person on the right side, and so on and so forth. And you can put this bar on top or remove it, and it's up to you how big and how big will be the lower third and how it's going to be composed in your shot or whatever type of thing you're doing. So hope you like this tutorial. It came out a bit longer than I expected, but hope you like it and learned some new stuff in it. And basically one more thing, you can change the color with the ramp, or come and add a hue and saturation, click color, I set this to 60%, and you can just shift the hue and get various color combinations. So as you can see, you can create some interesting results. So that's it. Hope you liked this tutorial. Once again, I'm Stefan for a-tutsplus.com, and we'll see you next time.